I have my mother's hands, actually. I have small hands. Sometimes I wish I maybe could have been a doctor. You want to hit with these as much as you can, but when you're standing on a 1/4-inch steel blade and you're getting tugged on and pulled on and you're trying to keep from getting punched, you don't always hit with those knuckles, and do the best you can. I had teeth in my hand here and shattered my knuckle. I broke this knuckle. It's not there anymore. That's where I got my finger almost bit off. This one right here. And you know, I had surgery on that, and I had surgery on this one where I got bit. Same fight. I feel it days, you know, but it's part of paying the price, you know, and I can still use them. You know, probably 18,999 people in the stands out of the 19,000 at one time or another, wherever they work, probably wanted to punch someone in the mouth. Whether it's their boss, someone they work with, somebody in competition with them. And they never get to do it. But they like to see someone else do it.
Chris Nilan was as tough as any SOB in the NHL, and everyone knew how important he was for the Montreal Canadiens of that era. I mean, he was their spine. He was their backbone.
Semenko's got the size advantage, but I don't know whether he's got the heart advantage.
When he was playing with the Montreal Canadiens, he gave everything he had to the city and to the team. And there's not a heck of a lot more that you can say about any human being.
I don't know how mad Semenko is, but Nilan's plenty upset.
The perception people had of him was that he did have a screw loose. And I think that enhanced his toughness because a lot of people were afraid of him.
My oldest daughter, Colleen, was at a pool party. One of her girlfriend's ex-boyfriend followed her in his car. And he jumped out of the car and he took her and threw her into the garage door. And then my daughter, Colleen, got involved, and he hit Colleen in the chest and knocked her down. And I went and found him. And I just kicked his ass all over the store. I punched him. I hit him with bottles of Coke. I kicked him. I beat him. Yeah, I beat him. I went to court. I was charged with assault and battery, dangerous weapon, all those things. And the prosecutor was all over me, you know. I don't know if he had a daughter. And if he did, if that happened to her, he might have called the cops, but good for him. You know, good for him.
He was one of the toughest players in the league during the 1980s, amassing over 3,000 penalty minutes. Please welcome Chris Knuckles Nilan.
For Chris, I think his love of the game, he loved it more, so much more than the rest of us. And when it came time to end, it was that much tougher for him.
I got in a fight with 3 big fucking black guys. They fucking beat me, kicked me, I broke 2 fucking ribs. I tore my rotator cuff. I fucking split open my black eye. Actually felt good, but I couldn't breathe for fucking months.
When he retired, it affected him as a form of rejection. And that just snowballed into bad decision, begetting bad decision, begetting bad decision.
Fuck, you're making it fucking more difficult for us. Fuck. Fucking asshole goalie. Long time shitty goaltender.
You piss through every nickel or dime you ever made. The money's gone. The life is gone. And I saw somebody this past winter, and they asked, how's Chris? And I told him, I said, not good, and it's not going to end good.
My dad was a Green Beret, his Special Forces, and I seen him jump out of planes when I was young. I used to go and watch him. My dad was an aggressive guy. He was an aggressive guy, and it rubbed off on me. I looked up to that.
He had a friend, Bubsy. I think they were probably 12 years old, and there was about a 15-year-old kid from down the street coming, beating on Bubsy right down by the schoolyard there, and Chris ran down and jumped the kid from behind and started fighting with him. He always took up for friends of his.
We hung around a bunch of rugged guys, but, you know, he was a little bit tougher and crazier. He seemed to like to go after big muscle heads. And then other times, you know, through his loyalty to his friends, I think, when he was in beefs, you know, went pretty far and could get a good amount of trouble.
Even if they were just hanging on a corner, you know, somebody ended up saying something to somebody and a fight broke out, and it just got to the point and it's like, oh, what did he do now?
I really frustrated my dad in a lot of ways because he couldn't understand some of the things I did. If I did something wrong, if there was a call from the school because I got in trouble, whether it was the police calling or something happened again with Chris and I was coming through the door, I was ducking.
I always asked him to be truthful about what happened, and he always was truthful. And I wasn't always happy with it. And oftentimes we'd have a little confrontation amongst ourselves.
Slapped me, and he punched me. There were times he scared the shit out of me. Would he scare me out of repeating the same behavior? I think that was his goal. But if, you know, you look at my track record, it didn't work. As crazy as I was as a kid, one of the things I truly believe that helped me was my passion for the game of hockey.
We have a hockey rink down the street here, and of course they'd lock it up at night. He'd climb over the fence and get himself in there and skate around, playing, shooting. That's all he ever wanted to do. It was his whole life once he started playing. It was his whole life.
Hockey was definitely the anchor, my own mind, my soul. And if I didn't have that, you know, who knows?
In the corner to Sanderson, back in front door, shot, score! From Sanderson! And what could be better than that?
Bruins win the Stanley Cup on a goal by Bobby Orr.
Well, I used to listen to my transistor radio at night and listen to the Boston Bruins up in bed. Bobby Orr and the Big Bad Bruins. And you see the way they play, you see the plays they make, you see the fights that they were in. It's definitely something inside of me that clicks at an early age that that's what I wanted to do. My dream was to play in the National Hockey League, and my dream was to one day play for the Bruins.
If you trace the roots of hockey, it was a game that really grew up in a frontier atmosphere where there wasn't much policing. So if you got a referee and he misses a call and somebody gets whacked in the head, you're not going to dial 911 and wait for a cop to arrive. You're going to whack the guy back. And when one whack leads to another whack, then the sticks drop and then the fight happens.
Back in the 40s and 50s, if you get in a fight, you were by yourself. If you get cleaned up, somebody would tell you, hey, next time don't be so cocky. Find somebody you can beat.
They're now getting involved in there, and they're all coming out. Both benches are entering.
The Bruins, in their heyday, the late 60s, early 70s, really transformed hockey.
Puck loose in the corner, and here we go.
If anybody ever put a glove on Bobby Orr, wow.
Orr and Ballon throw a little of it. Esposito's in there, and here we go.
I think a lot of players in the league looked at the Boston Garden as what do they call that Mel Gibson movie with the dome and Thunderdome? But it was an enclosed cage. Two go in and one comes out. And you could call it the Boston Garden.
As things would go on, of course, you saw the Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers, who won pair of cups in the early 70s by using fighting as a tactic. Teams would get what they called the Philly flu, where guys would come down with mystery ailments the night before they had to play the Flyers. Coach, I don't feel good. I'm sick. Yeah, because you don't want to lose any teeth tomorrow when you got to go against Schultz and Moose DuPont and all those other thugs. They would carry a tough guy in every line, and they would beat the crap out of you in every scrum.
We're going to have a Donnybrook right down below it.
The Broad Street Bullies created an arms race. 2 years through the league, 2 championships, and everyone said, oh, this is how it's done? Everybody started finding the toughest dudes they could find, from Medicine Hat to Moncton to Moose Jaw, you name it. If you were tough and you could face one of those guys, you became a necessity. The enforcers became necessary.
Work from you guys. Come on, guys. Put your heads on the ice out there. Whatever you got there, guys, we all know how to play hockey. Just play it smart. That's right. You're not daring. Stick 'em. Fuck 'em. Christ, pop 'em. Yeah, sure. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Let's go now.
Slapshot gets the Casablanca of hockey fight cinema. It's sort of just become ingrained. This is what hockey's about. A hockey fan needs
We were kind of the dead-end kids in the sense that Northeastern could never get the best players. So we kind of got the kids that were just the hard work and lunch bill type of game.
We had a scrimmage against the Boston Bruins, and one of the players on the Bruins, Mike Milbury, went after a kid on our team who was probably 5'7", tossed him around, and next thing you know, Nilan's fighting Mike Milbury and Terry O'Reilly. For a college kid to go after, you know, back then they were the big bad Bruins, real tough guys, and hence the name Knuckles.
He always talked about playing the National Hockey League, which we never thought would ever happen.
I told my dad I thought I was going to get drafted, you know. And he said the only way I'd probably get drafted if there was another war.
I had a phone call here from the Boston Globe. Congratulations, your son's been drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. I thought it was a prank phone call. And I said, oh, that's nice, and I hung up. But then we got more phone calls, and it was true.
Not in the first round, not in the second round, not in the third round, not in the fourth round, 17th round. There were 235 players taken in the draft that year. I was 231. A lot of people say at the end there, they got a bunch of names up on the board and they throw a dot, and whichever name the dot hits, they draft you. My first game, I fought a guy named Bam Bam Belanger, and There was some pushing and shoving on the ice, and I came in and pushed Belanger. I punched him kind of in the chest. The referee's gun and broke it up. I came back to the bench, and there was a kid, Dave Allison. He was out of the Ontario League. And he looked down the bench at me and says, hey, fucking college kid, you know, you ever been in a brawl before? They look at you like a college kid. He's a pussy, you know. And then the next shift, I went out and fought Belanger, and I fed him lunch. And I come back to the bench. Now, Allison's not sure. He said, well, Jesus, this college kid, where did he learn to fight?
We're on this first road trip, and the fans are crazy. They're in these small towns. And this guy is running around and fighting guys he's never heard of, the guys that are pretty tough. 3 weeks into the season, the whole league was talking about this guy.
Timmy Burke, my teammate down there, said that no one knew this college kid could fight, and he came, and he systematically went through the league and fought every tough guy until there were no more takers. What a line, you know, what a line. And I think Montreal and me doing that realized that maybe we should see if he can do it at this level.
Over the blue line. Vanek gets it again and brings it right back in for Buffalo. Here's Vanek walking in on goal. He scores!
The NHL is a game. It's beautiful. It's elegant. But it can be nasty. And if you don't have people that held other guys accountable, they're going to take liberties because they can.
When your players are out there, your skill players, they're trying to get somewhere, and a guy's giving them an elbow or getting them in the corner, and they call it a face wash when they get their glove and rub it on their face. A lot of these guys aren't the roughest, toughest guys in the world. They're artists. They're not plumbers and construction workers. They're artists and dancers. So you have somebody to go out there and say, hey, leave my buddy alone.
It's the only game in which you can't run out of bounds. And so there's a constant presence of people who would knock these finesse players off their pins. And you need guys to create room for those players.
Nice move! Another nice move! Oh, he scored! Oh, what a goal! Left point, over to Blake. Blake feeds it to Gretzky. Here Gretzky scores! What a shot by Wayne Gretzky!
If there wasn't a Marty McSorley, there wouldn't have been a Wayne Gretzky. McSorley allowed Gretzky to be Gretzky. That's what a tough guy does.
There was one night Doug Evans was playing for Winnipeg, and he speared Gretz, and it was probably the third or fourth time he tried to take liberties with Wayne Gretzky. And what I did is I hung down in their end, and I cross-checked him very, very hard, right across the chest, down on the ice. And when he was on the ice, I leaned down, and I really hit him hard. Almost to the point where it's like a computer screen when the light goes up. Now, I got 4 games for it, but that can't happen on my watch.
Not everybody can be a tough guy. It takes a certain character. You gotta, and it's all about character. You gotta be willing to do everything and anything that you can do that other people wouldn't do. That's what it takes.
The Montreal Canadiens are moments away from their 5th straight Stanley Cup. Most fans agree this is the finest hockey team ever assembled.
Montreal Canadiens, the most storied franchise in the history of hockey, and one of the most storied franchises in the history of sports, period. The Hall of Famers, 24 Stanley Cups. It's just like I couldn't believe I was there. I mean, holy shit, here I am. We're in Philly. I'm sitting on the bench. Game gets going, and Philly starts running around playing rough. They want to rough us up. And Claude Rowe was the coach. Claude's short and stocky little fat guy. He's lost his eye playing junior hockey. And Claude came up behind me on the bench, and he said, Yankee boy, he said, don't be afraid of these men. They're just men like us. And I'm like, okay. I look at him. He's like 5'4", 200 pounds, you know, one eye, I look out on the ice, and there's Philadelphia Flyers, all these huge guys. Bob Daly's like 6'6", and, you know, Kelly, and, you know, all these tough guys. I'm like, just men like us, all right, you know? And I ended up getting on the ice the next shift, and I fought Bob Kelly. You know, I give it to him, and I got him down, and I said, geez, now I know I can do this. I can do this.
Going here. These are two tough customers. You wouldn't want to be on the end of either one of these.
He wasn't afraid of anybody in the National Hockey. Didn't matter what tough guy that you mentioned to him, he'd be ready to take him on at any time.
You got to give Nilan credit for even tackling that big boy, 6'4".
It's like, you know, you have a paper route and they kick him up and wants to give me your money, you know, and you sucker him and you run. Or you sucker him and you get beat up, but you hang on to your money. And he's taking my paper route money.
He was the toughest guy in the league, you know, and he knew how to fight.
Now Nilan's coming back with some right. Boy, Nilan can throw that right hand. And he can. And Nilan has landed some real haymakers. Nilan, oh, he pounded him.
I might get a black eye or I might get cut, a couple stitches, but, you know, I'm not going down. You know, I ain't going down.
Chris had a reputation of what is he going to do next? Is he going to be in the shower waiting for me? Is he going to be out in the parking lot waiting for me? Like, don't cross this guy.
We've got a fight. Baxter and Chris Nilan.
One time he was fighting Paul Baxter. And they were yapping back and forth in the penalty box. And back in those days, they used to keep the pucks in the white container, frozen. Baxter's yapping at him. They're going back and forth. Chris picked up a puck, whipped it, caught Baxter on the head. Baxter goes out cold in the penalty box.
Nilan just threw something at him. He's out of the game. Look out. Ooh, and he just slammed the glass.
So, for instance, throws a puck, knocks a guy out in the box. Now that guy thinks, oh, I'm on the stretch, I'm cut. Here comes Nilan now chasing me down the runway, you know, with skates on. That stuff travels.
We're in Philadelphia, and I felt somebody give me a jab with their stick, and I didn't know who it was, and so I jab him back, and I look around, and it's Bobby Clark. So I'm going, oh, no, I'm in a fencing duo with Bobby Clark, right? So all of a sudden, somebody grabbed me and threw me up against the glass and actually had my feet off the ice, and it was Ben Wilson. He was a real tough guy, one of the Flyers enforcers, right? So he had his arm cocked, and he says, you ever touch Bobby Clark again? He says, I'm going to effing kill you. He says, as a matter of fact, he said, I might effing kill you right now. I figure I'm dead. My face will be just pulverized, and all of a sudden he's lying on the ground. Chris came in and hit him with one punch and knocked him out, and basically saved my life because I could have been dead.
Chris and I got married in 1981. He was still a rookie, and a lot of the players were veteran Canadian guys, but he just assumed, you know, you guys are coming to my wedding, right? And they're just like, who's this crazy American kid? So I think they just wanted to come to Boston and find out what the deal was. And pretty much the whole team came.
The Canadians loved having Chris Nilan. He was like Linus's security blanket. You felt a whole lot better at night knowing you could suck your thumb and have Chris Nilan there beside you.
Down to Ravely, up on the right side. Nestorenko bobbing by Ferguson. They're going at it. Ferguson with that right hand. Nestorenko is down.
There have been a lot of great fighters in the NHL over the years, but the number of fighters or tough guys who could play the game is minimal and has been minimal.
Are you a tough guy because you have no other choice? Or are you a tough guy because you know this is your only chance? And for me, it was the only chance I had to get to where I wanted to go, so it was my key to the door.
Just imagine from when you're a little kid, whether you want to be a doctor, a policeman, the president, whatever. My dream was to play hockey, and I got there. And however I had to do that, that's what I did to try and play in the NHL.
I was a regretful tough guy. It was never what I inspired me. I love the game of hockey, and I didn't like my role. My second fight in the National Hockey League was against this guy named Bob Probert. I didn't know who he was. I never did the hockey film thing.
Ewan, I knew that was coming, boy. These two. Oh, look at Ewan. He decked Probert. Did he ever rack him?
Knocked him out in one punch.
Because he caught him square on the jaw. It was the first punch.
And the coach goes, "You can do that again tomorrow."
Bob Probert will go down as the undisputed heavyweight champion in NHL history. He was just that big and that tough and that fierce.
Those things that I thought, geez, I want to be like Dave Schultz. I want to be a fighter in the NHL. No, for me it was, I want to be like a Bobby Orr. I want to be somebody that can score goals.
Bob Probert was a good player and had come into the league as a good player. I think guys who come in as 3-minute-a-game goons, they couldn't even aspire to be Bob Probert.
Guys say, Probes, come on, give me a shot at the title. And so, of course, I did.
Every game, the resident tough guy comes out to test himself against Bob Probert, and
There's a certain thing about fighters that when they get challenged, they don't back down.
Two big guys under the scoreboard at center ice, just throwing them. Bob Probert with a thundering right. Down goes Simpson.
If you engaged with Bob Probert, you were taking on more than you could handle. But people thought Tony Twist was nuts. He was a bulky guy, not as tall as Probert, not as good a player as Probert, but he scared people.
A day of the game, you're in Toronto, you practice second because you're in Toronto's ice. So you get in there, you get the bike ride going, you do a few push-ups and get all stretched out, no shirt on, and then you go sit on their bench and you watch them practice. I'm pissing on your lawn right now. Let's see what you got.
There they go, twisting Ray, start firing punches right at center ice. Twist got his arm free and got one in there. Ray can't get his sweater off. And the length of the punches down, Twist starts firing punches in there, and he gets Ray down on the ice.
Tony Twist throws cinder blocks.
He was not a good hockey player as far as skill. No one could really figure out, was he a winger, a forward, or was he defenseman? Because he basically went out there during the face-off and something needed to be done. They dropped the puck, he dropped the gloves with some guy, and they'd fight.
A big right from Twist. Oh, and he hammers him with a hard right.
You got 20,000 people chanting your name. Be like the rock star going out there and singing the song that everybody loves to hear. Everybody was waiting for you to get on the ice. Everybody wanted to hear that one song and wanted to see you fight.
Tony Twist, make him shake.
They all waited for it. It was the closing. It was Leonard Skinner singing Sweet Home Alabama. I promise you, there's a twinge in my dick. I enjoyed it that much.
This guy, he's a fine broth of a lad. He come up the hard way. You went down to Halifax, you fought every night. Now, why would you go down and fight every night?
I wasn't